A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 81st edition of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. It has been our pride and privilege to host some fantastic thought leaders, eminent educators, school principals, and teachers over the past so many months as part of this event. What started as a humble offering, trying to help educators get a more hands on feel of online education processes back in April 2020, has now flourished and grown into an event in itself. And for that, we have to thank all of you. Today, we look at a very interesting topic. We look at the importance of community service in schools. As all of you have heard being said multiple times on this platform, in schools, we are all trying to work towards making better citizens for a better tomorrow. And one thing that perhaps stands out in that regard is the importance of community service. We have a stellar panel and a phenomenal list of speakers lined up for you today. So without much ado, let me introduce them to you. Our first speaker today is Mr. Philip Burrett. Mr. Burrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Burrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. He qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist. So, privileged to have you with us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Subayu. I hope I am audible. Um, a very good evening to the entire Notebook family and our esteemed panelists, as well as to all the people who have tuned in. Community service in schools. So when I look at community service, I think of the family, whether it's nuclear or joint. I think of children being trained by parents to help out with the family, whether it's washing dishes or piling up clothes or hanging out clothes or doing the shopping. Children are taught in a family to contribute to the family. Otherwise, we become takers and we forget to give back from where we have taken. And I think this sense of contributing and giving back is instilled in each one of us in our own families. And the problem is that many of us have taken from the earth more than we've given back. And you can see the planet in the state that it's in. It's because we have become a nation or a world of consumers, but we do not replace. Now, schools, being small communities in themselves, have to reinforce what families do at home. We have to instill in our students a sense of service. Now, this is usually done in schools in a variety of ways. Each school has its own ways of addressing community service based on where the school is located, the needs of the community, whether it's a day school or boarding school, and so many other things. No one school can copy the blueprint of another school. And it is usually mandated in terms of hours or whatever. And I think that the moment community service is mandated, it somehow loses its spontaneity and its purity, its soul. And so I was very fortunate in my last 30 years were at the Doon School, and the Doon School is very, very strong in community service. And so when I arrived in 85, the school had a 50-year history and tradition of community service behind it. And there's a plaque that hangs in our foyer, which was written by the first headmaster. And it talks about the boys being an aristocracy, yes, but not of birth, privilege, and wealth, but an aristocracy of service. And somehow or the other, this whole idea of service is built into the very DNA of the Doon School student. Even our prayers, they have a lot of charity must begin at home. We must give and not to count the cost. This is all, from an early age inculcated. Boys served at tables, they brought and made morning tea, boys in charge of toilets, people were distributing letters, there were boys in charge of keeping rooms in shape. those who look after the repairs of the houses and got window panes fixed, for example. There were people who trained junior boys to march and do PT, to play cricket. Apart from these home chores, we also had a very interesting thing called the quota system, where in the 80-acre campus, every boy had to, in his diary, log in a certain amount of hours to be done voluntarily with the teacher, with groups over the term. And these voluntary groups could extend to generator squads, audio-visual squads, chair squads. Chair squads was one of the lowly, looked at squads because they had to put chairs for any function that the school had. There was the adventure equipment store, which gave out tents and rucksacks before treks. So we had a number of these stores and a number of these squads that the boys got involved into. It also was very much teacher-led. If a teacher had an idiosyncrasy or a love for something, he would then gather around a few boys, and that would be the beginning of another squad doing something in the community. But very soon it was felt that just serving your own community within the walls was not enough. We had to reach outside the four big red walls of school and go out of school. So we had the John Martin Memorial School, which was a village school. There was the Russellport Development Area, where the boys helped in fisheries and agriculture production. We helped raising goats, water harvesting, and irrigation for the local people with the help of NGOs that the school tied up with. We actually diverted the course of a little stream and turned a turbine and created electricity and irrigation. Then there was a part of school which is a very grotty area, which was like a ravine. And we started a squad called Khad Squad. And the boys actually landscaped this and made it into a fantastic open air theater, which we call the Rose Bowl. And this amphitheater is one of the most sought after spots in schools. Visitors coming to Dehradun come to see the amphitheater. And the amphitheater was built entirely by boys and masters, brick by brick. We had the Panchayat Ghar, which was actually a place where our boys taught our support staff's children. We also taught the support staff wives and themselves, and we called it the Adult Education Squad. We adopted a number of villages in the area, and our boys would spend hours teaching these children, doing up the villages, painting, doing the bathrooms. We also went to the Cheshire Home, the Blind School, and the School of the Hearing Impaired. In fact, one housemaster even began teaching his little kids, class 7 boys, sign language. He says, unless you know sign language, how can you communicate with people who can't speak? And like this, we went on. Then in the 1970s, somewhere on the 70s, the concept of the SUPW came into schools. And this, in my view, killed the love the boys had for service. Because the moment you have something compulsory, as I said earlier, there was a sword of Damocles that hung over the heads by this word compulsion. Hours had to be counted, grades had to be given, somebody sat in judgment of you, and there were threats and bribery and coercion and all the stuff that follows anything that's made compulsory. However, the Doon School continued with what it called its own social service. And despite the fact that the spontaneity may have been lost. But after the 1990s and up to the time I left, community service took on a whole new impetus. Every boy had to spend 20 hours a term doing community service, of which 5 hours was always outside school, and the other 15 hours might be in school doing something or the other. Some boys chose to do all 20 hours outside school, and that was permitted as well. College applications became a very big thing. And to soup up your college app and your CV, good social service, community service had to be done. But this was not something that was going to be a knee-jerk reaction. We were not allowing boys to just take up community service to fluff up their CV. It had to be a continuous, sustained effort lasting years. Now, the school added women empowerment, drug addiction awareness, rehabilitation in villages, medical camps, helping in the district jail, animal shelters, taking leftover food to the local slums. They had destitute women shelters. There was rug making and knitting in urban slums. There was also, our boys started microfinancing. And And now there was a huge list of things. It ran into many events. And what happened was that, even a boy who was good at sports was urged into going into doing a sports clinic. So they went into villages, and if they were a basketballer, they taught the people basketball. If the village children wanted to do squash, we brought them into school. Our school also tied up with schools in the UK and in the US, who sent students regularly to work alongside our boys in village development. And so bigger and better work be started outside. This being the DNA of the Doon School boy, the Latur earthquake, the Uttarakashi earthquakes, the Orissa floods, the tsunamis, Bhuj, and the recent floods in Kedarnath all saw teams of Doon School boys rush into the area and actually work with their sleeves rolled up. And, you know, giving away money, time, expertise, experience is what I think we must teach our children. They got to give, whether it's time, money, expertise, something. They got to give something. Now, the idea behind social and community service is not to sit on a high horse and look down upon the communities you work for, because this is not an equal way of looking at things. We have to work with people, not ahead of people. We are not bigger than them. Our children can learn much more from rural and slum children, and by working in these areas, than they learn from us. So the first thing is to tell these children that they're not doing a favor to these people, and that they're a visitor to the villages and the slums they enter. Fluffing up on CV may be good. Badges and awards and special assembly prizes that are awarded to boys who do community service is also a driving and motivating factor, but that should not be the only driving factor. We must learn that we are privileged to be in good schools, and therefore we must give back to the underprivileged. Now, people don't want charity. They want to be treated like human beings with respect. And this is what community service should teach our children, that whatever they're good at, whatever skill or talents they have, they've got to give it out to people who may need it. And learning that our city kids don't, they have to share rather than just appease one's our conscience of doing well. Now, there was a time when the government came out with a minimum wage figure. I think it was a paltry sum of 79 rupees. So there were two Doon School boys who came from affluent homes who were actually dressed differently and went out and worked in a tea shop for an entire day on 79 rupees. Nobody knew who they were. The tea shop owner didn't know who they were. They sought the job, they worked, and they fed themselves on 79 rupees just to see what it felt like to be a poor man. Now, we also have the story of Bunker Roy, who was a Doon School boy. He was an IAS officer. He was 9 times national squash player, champion actually. He gave up the IAS and started community service. He's very famous now at Telonia, a village in Rajasthan. And you can read about him in his TED talk called The Barefoot College. And Bunker started work as a well digger. He would go from village to village, being an old Doon School boy, digging wells. And he once told me, he says, when I go to a village, I'm not an expert. I'm not a Doon School St. Stephen's character. I'm just a simple man from the next village. And that's a lesson I learned about community service. We need to learn from them as much as they can learn from us. It's a symbiotic relationship. I think the final thing is that our kids are fortunate and that they have to give back to the rural communities and the poor. Many of our students head for the good life abroad after school, doing college, and this brain drain has been disastrous. We need to come back. We need to come back and pay back. And as I said in the beginning, every school has to work out its own style of community service, whether it's organic gardens, collecting old books, giving it out to the children that don't have books. It all depends on your location, your clientele, and what you want to do. The main thing is that you've got to start. Every school can start community service, even if it's going to the next hospital and reading to the elderly and the people who are dying, clearing litter from your street. Everything starts. I know a boy who started a midday milk scheme. He raised money from the community. He got the milk, he got the eggs, and he started a midday milk scheme for a couple of local slums next to his colony. So I want to end here by saying that community service is an extremely important part of a child's education. It teaches him to go beyond himself, to think beyond his selfish needs. And I think there's a lot of people in this country that need the help of our fortunate children. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to you, Shubhayu. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your wealth of experience and expertise with us. When we had picked up this topic in the office, I had told Achin already that this is one topic that we know Bharat sir would be extremely passionate about. So if I had placed a bet on that, I would have won some money today. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to move on to our second speaker. Our second speaker is Achin Bhattacharya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. He is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CP Australia. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the boards of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Shubha, am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session on a topic which is really important if we want our children to grow up as responsible and generous citizens who will not only have a razor sharp analytical mind to think, but also a sensitive heart to feel the pain of those who need help. We often hear the call to give back to society. But why is it so important to heed this call? As it turns out, community service does more than helping the recipients. It also benefits the givers as well. Even at very young ages, children can start making a difference in the lives of others, and in doing so, more fully embrace their roles as ongoing contributors to society. Undoubtedly, families obviously play a huge role in helping to create engaged citizens. However, I firmly believe schools also definitely have a huge role to play. They can offer beautiful partnerships in instilling a fundamental understanding of the value of community service. Now, as we all know that community service brings people together in a collective problem-solving effort. Obviously, the aim is to support greater good. Its impact can be particularly rewarding as the outcomes are very often uniquely tangible because they play out in the student's own backyards, in the community that the student belongs to. So, from volunteering at a local village school to picking up trash on the side of the road, students can actually see and feel the fruits of their labor, which definitely is very satisfying and self-sustaining as well. I was going to do the very interesting and pertinent research on this. Now, it's also infectious, according to a research from the University of California and Harvard, which was published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Science. It revealed that, and I really, it strike a chord I really like the entire essence of it, and I wanted to share with all of you. It goes on to say that cooperative behavior is contagious and it spreads from one person to another. And goes on. So when people benefit from kindness, somebody else's kindness, they pay it forward. So naturally, very often people who are benefited by kindness in their own lives, they also help others who are not originally involved. So it's not paying back but paying forward, and this creates a cascade of cooperation, a tsunami of cooperation that influences many more, inspires many more in the social network. But in participating in community service, definitely young people stand to get back even more than they can give. Another very interesting study in this regard was a report on volunteering from Child Strengths Data Bank, which very, I'll say, examines the entire thing from a different perspective, which goes on to say that volunteering in adolescence years is associated with positive outcomes during the teen years as well as during adulthood. So after a survey, the study concluded that teens who volunteer are more likely to have positive academic, psychological, and occupational well-being. Thus, being involved in community service, children who are involved in community service are more likely as adults to have stronger work ethics. Thus, volunteering is also associated with the development of greater respect for others, development of leadership skills, and understanding of citizenship. The fact that we are a part of the larger social ecosystem, and the fact that we all need to exist in harmony. We need to all coexist, where the existence of my fellow citizens and his well-being is equally important to me as my own well-being, because it can impact me either today or tomorrow, as it has been proved time and again, and especially during these testing times of pandemic. So the study goes on to say that the benefits of volunteering during schooling years very often carries on to adulthood. So some very interesting studies, and also reduces stress, because very often we see our children the kind of academic pressure, trying to manage so many fronts, extracurriculars, academics, burden of expectation. So definitely it goes on to say that it's also a stress buster. And skills like empathy, humility, staying grounded are naturally nurtured. And these are invaluable skills for lifetime. Thus, according to this study, it not only makes them more kinder people, but better learners as well. Now, many schools have community service programs. I think Bharat sir gave a very wonderful overview of the topic with great examples. And I'm sure our esteemed panel that we have today, we are very experienced and esteemed panel today. I'm sure they will again deliberate on this and come up with some very real practical examples, case studies, their own experiences. So that particular part of discussion are definitely I would be interested to them, and rather I would like to listen to them. So with regard to my deliberation, what I wanted to focus on is from a more holistic perspective. So now when we discuss about community service, so what is the difference between community service and volunteering? Now this is really important, because community service is unpaid work which is performed by a person or a group of people, definitely for the benefit of the community, without any form of compensation. But the difference from volunteering is always performed on a voluntary basis. But community service may also be compulsory as per situation. For example, there are countries where immigrants are expected, and this fast tracks the citizenship requirement, to spend some hours in community service. At times, very often we see in many countries that community service, the courts, the way they look at it, is a substitution of criminal justice sanctions. Say, for example, I was going through a very interesting judgment. In the US, a truck driver, who was booked for drunken driving, was asked to go to schools and explain to children the dangers of drunken driving. So very often we see that it also acts as a substitution of criminal justice sanction. Somebody who has been booked for littering in the park is entrusted with a responsibility to keep a park in the community clean for a particular tenure. So that's the difference which I was trying to highlight, is that although there is no compensation for it, but very often it may not be voluntary. Now, I believe that this particular kind of service that we are discussing about, very often we see, because I was just trying to understand with regard to the school ecosystem, how this entire thing of community service is taking shape. Very often we see that students, when considering the idea of service, very often in many places around the world, one of the forms is to raise money for charity. While it may be important, there's no doubt about it, it may help someone in need. But this particular kind of service, which is philanthropy, is relatively easier for children, many children, to accomplish. They ask their parents, relatives, friends, neighbors for donation. And the result is raising funds, which may help someone. But other forms of community service that we were discussing about, keeping surroundings clean, etc., involves far more direct involvement. I was reading about an award-winning teacher in US who took community service and looked at it from a completely different perspective altogether. She took her second grade students, students who are class 2, to visit daycare centers for the elderly. And she took them, and the children made beautiful homemade cards. They regularly went there, interacted with the senior citizens, gave them company, and activities that they were performing in school, like, for example, recitation of a particular poem, etc., they used to go ahead and do and perform those with senior citizens. Many of whom were staying alone in the daycare center. Again, so these are some very touching examples with regard to community service. Now, if you look at our history and the way the entire world looks at us, there's no doubt about it that India is among the foremost widespread destinations globally to indulge in volunteer programs. So a simple search in the internet and you can see that from around the globe, many people, many volunteers, they want to really come and spend time in India with regard to community service, because the country offers a lot to the soul in terms of history, culture, widespread projects, food, the kind of hospitality, beautiful folks. So every year, thousands of participants from around the globe participate in volunteer programs in India. So whether that be from teaching youngsters at a slum school, or showering love on orphans or street children, facilitate underprivileged women to earn a living, or treat patients at a government aid center. As we see many globally accomplished medical professionals, they donate a portion of their time here. And their contributions are well recognized. So I was going to some very popular volunteering programs in India, which are globally very popular. For example, street children volunteering program, volunteering teaching program, yoga and volunteer adventure in the Himalayas, summer volunteer program. Also programs where, for example, dental elective internship, where students of dental colleges who are in final year, etc., they come, they help the doctors here, etc. So some very interesting activities happening. But when you look at the entire schooling curriculum and the way community service is looked at in India vis-a-vis other countries in the West, say be it US or Europe, one significant difference, and I'm also going through some interviews of students who have shifted base, teachers who have shifted base, and how they look at the entire thing. I believe that maybe because of intense academic pressure and other factors, community service, although definitely in some schools it is being practiced and a lot of good work is happening, but still, undoubtedly, there's a long way to go. Now, this is quite surprising because when it comes to any kind of social welfare activities, as a nation, as a society, we have always been one of the pioneers. We have always been at the forefront. Because if you look at our history also, like charity and social welfare during ancient period, charity was always the first form of social work practiced in India. So whether it be love or compassion for the needy, and although the earlier reference to charity is also found in Rig Veda, which goes on to say, this is very beautifully written, which encourages charity by saying, "May the one who gives shine most." Just one line, but it really captures the essence of this ancient civilization and the way the entire thought process was. Giving. May the one who give shine most. And if you look at ancient religious texts, be it the Upanishads, so everywhere it prescribed that every householder must practice charity. And this is one of the most ancient values. Even the concept of communitarian society in early Vedic period, the concept of extended family where everyone's needs were catered to by everyone. So there's a life of complete mutually and reciprocal assistance. So everybody, so there's nothing called individual needs. People really reached out to others. And things were handled in a far more collective way, which I think is really captures the essence of people standing up and ensuring people in need get the kind of help that they deserve, that they need. Even in the very apt and very nicely captured, this is, I must say, that Kautilya in his book Arthashastra, while speaking about the duty of king, said that, and in the happiness of his subjects lies his happiness. In their welfare, his welfare. Whatever pleases himself, he shall not consider as good. But whatever pleases his subjects, he shall consider that good. So we can very well understand that how the entire social structure worked. For instance, Ashoka developed a comprehensive system of social welfare, which included women welfare, rehabilitation of prisoners, rural development, free medical care, regulation of prostitution, provision of public utilities like roads, rest houses, travelers, wells. So we can understand that the kind of foundation that we have as a nation. So there's no doubt about it that community service, a lot of good work is being done in this country, and I'm sure that in times to come, a lot more will happen. Some very simple basic ideas which I'm sure can help a lot. helping senior citizens, giving them company, because I understand one of the foremost needs is the need for company. Very often, loneliness is their biggest problem. They may have every practical necessity that they need, but it's not only about tangible or material things. Also, someone else's company, love, a healing touch really goes a long way. Again, volunteering to improve the life of street children, helping them read. I think another very important thing that we have seen during this pandemic, we have seen that the kind of struggle, especially people who are marginalized at the bottom of the pyramid, migrant laborers working for miles together. So definitely small activities like donating clothes for the needy. Again, digital divide, something that we see. On one hand, we see so much of digital waste. We see so many families where very often, one particular mobile phone, which may be functionally doing fine, but after a certain period of time, the new one comes in. What happens to the old one? That might really help a child to study. Can we reach out? Can we really reach out? And can we make a difference? Whether that be with regard to beautifying our neighborhoods, planting more trees, donating books. So that may really help someone in a junior class who may not be able to afford. So the small activities, I'm sure, can make a lot of difference. So these are a few points that I wanted to make. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. We have a wonderful panel today, and I really look forward to the deliberation on this very important topic. Thank you. Over to you, Shoaib.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. As Achin said, we do have a stellar panel lined up for you for the discussion. Before we introduce them, I'll take just a couple of short minutes to tell you a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook create short, crisp audiovisual content that is tailored to the school curriculum, that is of use both to the teachers as well as the students. The way we do this is, for any topic, there's exhaustive research done first, after which, based on the research, we try and create an interest builder. This interest builder is a short storytelling video which raises the students' curiosity about the topic that is to follow. There is also content script generated regarding that particular topic and advanced question answers made for that. Now, all of this is then made into audiovisual content, which is finally published. One of the methods that we used is called augmented storytelling. The fundamental thought behind this was that animation, while very visually appealing, often distracts the student from the basic core concepts being taught. Instead, we found research from Harvard and Yale that suggested that a comic bookish approach, which is of still images, high quality hand-drawn illustrations, interspersed with narrative, creates a much more lasting impact. So what we do now is, first, there is exhaustive research and subject matter experts and senior educators are brought in at this stage who help us develop the content. Then a series of high quality hand-drawn illustrations are developed which augment the storytelling around the topic. Finally, the art and the content is merged together to create an audiovisual narrative. And finally, expert instructors get into a studio and shoot the delivery of the instruction, which is then merged with the content so far created. Finally, all of this is uploaded onto the cloud, from which this can be accessed by anybody. The final result looks something like this.
नमस्ते बच्चों, नोटबुक में आपका स्वागत है। इस नए वीडियो को आपके सामने प्रस्तुत करते हुए हमें बेहद खुशी हो रही है। हमारा उद्देश्य है परंपरागत शिक्षा को आधुनिक तरीके से पेश करना, ताकि हमारी ये नई पीढ़ी या आप सभी कहीं भी कभी भी इसे आसानी से पढ़ सकें।
Hello students, today we are going to study the story Madam Rides the Bus, written by Valli.
The king, Louis XVI, had come to power in 1774 at only 20 years of age. The king helped the 13 American colonies gain independence from Britain.
Curly brown hair turning permanently black. If you memorize this line, it will help you remember the ratios all your life. How? Let's see. Some people have is a way of remembering sine is equal to perpendicular by hypotenuse. Provides energy for everything you do throughout the day. Next is the nucleus, the brain of the cell. This is where all the secrets are stored. Why do you think you have black eyes as your parents? Aha! Thank the nucleus.
Whoa, what is this? We are gonna drown.
Don't worry, you're not going to drown. This is the cytoplasm.
Sometimes, a fully grown individual, such as hydra or planaria or starfish, can give rise to a complete individual from its body parts. Isn't this interesting?
नोटबुक में आप सभी का पुनः स्वागत है।
Well, the way these videos are built is that they are short, which means they can be integrated into your classrooms. You can use either a lesson video or a short recap video that we provide for every lesson as part of your classroom plan, whether it's an online class or an offline class. The added advantage is that every student also gets an individual home access from which they can access these same videos. Well, that was all that I had to tell you about Notebook, and it is now time to introduce the stellar panel to you. We have some very esteemed educators with us today. I will just introduce them one by one. We have with us Mrs. Malini Narayanan. She is an alumni of the prestigious Convent of Jesus and Mary School. She has a postgraduate degree from Delhi University, an MSc in chemistry, after which she went on to do her pre-doctoral studies in education and has an MEd and MPhil degree to her credit as an educator. Her 30 years of service began at her own alma mater, the Convent of Jesus and Mary School, New Delhi, and she taught at the Mothers International School for over a decade. She took over as the principal of Army Public School, Yol in Dharamshala, Himachal Pradesh in 1995. Mrs. Narayanan is an astute and dynamic educational leader who is the founder principal of the Army Public School at Shankar Vihar. She is a resource person and trainer for the Faculty Development Research Center, FDRC, of the Army Welfare Education Society, PWES, and a mentor for principals of the 137 Army Public Schools across the country. She has innovatively explored differentiated learning in a technology-driven school ecosystem so that no child is left behind. She has mentored her students and teachers to appreciate the tradition, rich heritage of our country while developing a global vision. Under her leadership, the school has won the coveted International School Award by the British Council and is today ranked amongst the top 5 of the 137 Army Public Schools that the Army maintains. She is the recipient of many prestigious awards, which include the commendation by the GOC 39 Mountaineer Division for dedicated service rendered as principal of the Army School, Yol Cantonment, awarded the GOC-in-C Western Command Commendation for excellent service rendered in establishing and bringing up the new school, Army Public Schools, Shankar Vihar, Delhi Cantonment. Another feather in the cap was the Special Recognition Award in the Pearson Teaching Awards category. This is a national level recognition for her contribution to the field of education. The Chief of Army Staff Commendation was awarded by General Dalbir Singh Suhag, PVSM, UISM, AVSM, VSM, Chief of Army Staff. She is currently the chairperson of the NPSC, which is an august educational body with 189 leading public schools as its members. Ma'am, it's our privilege to have you here with us today. We also have with us Mrs. Monalika Borthakur Singh, who is the principal in charge of DPS Jorhat. This is her 16th year into educational leadership. Being the head of the institution, she is constantly working towards building a school that celebrates students from diverse backgrounds and believes the center of any school in the 21st century is acceptance and adapting to the changing times. She is an alumnus of Pine Mountain School, Shillong, and Delhi University. Ma'am, again, privileged to have you with us. Thank you so much for being able to make the time. We also have with us Mrs. Kalpana Grover. Kalpana Grover is an educationist for over 30 years, and working with the youth has always been her driving force. It all began with the South Asian Youth Festival in 1988 at Tokyo, where she represented India and was then understood that she would eventually dedicate her life to education. She has worked in several prestigious institutions like Welham Boys as a middle school coordinator and head of lower school, the Assam Valley School, Gandhi Memorial International IB School in Indonesia. She has taken teachers training workshops in the Doon School, the World School in Punjab, Welham Boys School, Asian School, Assam Valley School, etc. She has also conducted academic audits for the Olive International School, Doha. Her educational expertise extends further into publishing. She has co-authored books on history for junior school classes, which are available today from Oxford University Press. Prior to her education pursuit, she was deeply involved in social work and worked as the director for the Salam Balak Trust in Delhi. This trust worked for disadvantaged sections of children and also extended its service to the street children. In her journey, she has worked with students from varying age groups and from multicultural environments. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor and a privilege to have you here. I shall now stop my share, turn on my camera, and I would request the esteemed panelists to do the same so that we can start the conversation. Malini ma'am, Kalpana ma'am, Monalisa ma'am, thank you all so much for being here today. I will get across to Malini ma'am first. Ma'am, if I may ask, when a school undertakes social or community welfare services with the students, what are the key values that you are expecting the students to develop from this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Roy. And first, let me compliment Mr. Philip and Mr. Bhattacharya. They set the tone for this entire conference and webinar, where we could exchange our views on the community service. I think they've covered the entire canvas and the gamut of all that can be done in schools and all that is being done in schools. But coming back to what you asked, first, let me start with why we are doing it at all first and why we're talking about it in today's age and time. I think I would like to first start from there, because today when you look at the families, we're all nuclear families with a single child at home, and there's not much of caring or sharing there, because the parents are all out to care for the child, and the child never gets a chance to give back to the parents also, let alone to the community. So when there is so much of me, myself, and only me all around, that is the need. That is the reason why we are even talking about community service coming to the school. And like Mr. Bhattacharya lucidly brought out the fact that, this was already embedded in our culture and it has been a part of it for centuries. I would also like to throw light on the role of religious centers in advocating community service, whether it is the Gurudwara or the church or the temple. We've always had, langars, we've always had seva, all that were values that we had instilled, as a part of the social fabric. But now, with so much of coming into oneself, staying within the family, located within yourself, the social fabric has changed tremendously. So therefore, today when the schools are actually uh, starting a program of community service, it is under dire straits, because we are worried about children not having these values which we thought they would catch in any which way. So the coming to the values that I'm so sorry, I'll just get this out of the way. So the values first is the very fact that we want empathetic citizens. We want citizens who are going to put service before self, and all of that are larger goals. For the child who's actually indulging in community service in a program within the school, it is a great sense of, self-pride, saying that I am doing something for somebody else. The very fact is it builds self-esteem. It kind of builds that, allowing him to move out of his known familiar area into an unknown area, where he gets to engage with so many different people who he would have never met in his normal routine. So that itself is a number two gain, which actually helps the child to build his social skills. We also talk about giving oneself. I think Mr. Philip talked about not just giving. Let's give talent. Let's give resource. Let's give a lot of ourselves. There's so much that's said every time you talk about community service in a public school. The haves always want to donate. They say, "Ma'am, how do we collect money? How do we collect books? How do we collect this? How do we collect that? How do we give away? So they feel community service means collecting material resources and donating it, which is, there is dan. The fact dan is exalted in Indian mythology, saying the dan giver is greater than the dan receiver, and so on and so forth. So the fact that Mr. Philip brought in the fact that people need to walk together while they are talking about community service, they are in this together as not givers and receivers, but as partakers, because there is an experience for the giver, there is an experience for the receiver. So this whole journey of feeling good, giving something of themselves, and time being the most precious. I think giving time is, I think, the biggest donation that one can give. I also wanted to place on record the fact that if you look at an international study, the age groups that are most enthusiastic about this are, the age groups of 12 to 18. And he rightly pointed out, Mr. Bhattacharya talked about it. He said, let's tap in the talent that is existing. Let us tap in the enthusiasm, the passion, and the energy of the young and divert it into useful causes. And so community service in that respect is, I think, a game changer. We keep telling the children, and of course, Greta Thunberg has been such a trailblazer. I think everybody wants to be her, in the recent past. So when you come to the children and ask them, what do you want to become? I want to become a change maker. I want to be like Greta Thunberg. So these are examples that the children get motivated by. So in the larger context, I think it means a lot to the children that they are actually reaching out, and they can be change makers, and in their small little ways, making a difference is bigger than making a donation. I think that's the words of Kathy Kavlin, who says, it's not about money, it is not about philanthropic donations, it is about investing yourself for a cause and making that change. I think that feeling of being useful to community is the biggest high amongst the children. And I think we'll be talking about many activities that we engage ourselves in. Let me hand over to you so that you can get the views of the others too.
Sure, ma'am. We'll come back to you because I'm quite sure Army Public Schools, Shankar Vihar, does a lot for the community around it. I have heard from people that I know there. Mona Lisa, ma'am, if we may come to you next. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here. You're still on mute, by the way.
Thank you, Shabayan.
Yes, ma'am. The same question to you. When your students are engaging in community activities, what are the values that you see are being instilled in them?
First of all, thank you so much for having me in this platform. And I'm really privileged to share the views with so many, enlightened people. Thank you so much. I would really like to tell you what actually community means to me. Although I was given a very short notice, but because it was community service, I really, it's very close to my heart. So, which is why I said, okay, we'll go ahead. And what community actually means is we are right there. Actually, the school is a community, right? So we start from there. And for me, like the speakers before me have already touched upon various very valuable points, which I would have, I totally agree with them. Is like a community is what where the individual is the nucleus, right? Being a part of an institution like DPS, the very motto of our school is service before self. So that's engraved in the logo, where we believe that students should live by this motto. Everything what we do in the nation, in the world today, is by an individual for an individual. So who is that individual? That individual is the person who is us or you, right? So for us in a school, it's the student along with the teacher along with the parents. So I call it a critical triangle where a parent, school, and the environment works with the nucleus, who's the student, in the center. Now, when we talk about community service and the values, it is absolutely where we all know the values, where you have responsibilities, we develop people skills, we develop collaborative skills. So all this is developed. But to me, unless like as a school, as a head of the school, if you just talk about community service and activities, I'm not happy. Okay. That is not satisfactory to me at all, because it's not what a curriculum tells me to do, and that we have to do some community activities. I firstly like to exemplify. I believe, this is my very personal belief, which I often tell the students as well as the teachers, as well as the parents in any platform that I get, that it is first be the change which you want to see in the world. Okay. So unless and until we exemplify as teachers, we exemplify as parents, children are not going to learn. There is no point doing activities unless first we instill those values and we show those values to our students. So in the assemblies or in any platform, like we have gratitude classes, we have a kindness squad. Okay. And I firstly believe that we should have a culture which is itself a community service. Each one, what is living, basically I look at it at a larger perspective. What is living? Living is actually somebody who doesn't have a smile, you just make his day, basically. So it's actually very true with our earlier speakers have said, giveaways and giving things, what ma'am has just said, daan, and that is absolutely which is very which has been happening. So now I look at it as economic equality in the society today. Can our children accept people? That is service. Can our children accept different genders? That is service. Can our children empathize with other people's inequalities? Those are that is what is giving, rather than, of course, what ma'am just said, collecting things and giving is really not what is community we centuries after centuries, and life has evolved, education is evolving, people are evolving. But thoughts, the main thing is the thought which actually makes you different. So we are talking about 21st century skills. Okay, we're talking about 21st century. So what is 21st century? Unless we change our thought, children will not change. I don't like to be just an activity that we do. We are doing many activities, many, which of course when I get a chance I will say. But more than activities, I want to create a culture in the school, or rather practice a culture in the school, which itself is service, is just service for each other. If we begin it at home, which is the school, charity begins at home, right? So if it begins in the school, like I don't have a pencil, so my friend is not just refusing to give me my pencil, but rather 5 children come and say that you take the pencil. That's where it starts. So for me, that is what is value, which you asked me the question. More than all the values at large, I feel that the value actually is a culture, and the culture itself, the school culture, reflects on the culture at home, because homes are beyond us to control, right? Parents are beyond us to control. We cannot go change them. So their wards come to our school. So we try to make a difference with them. So school for me is a community in itself. And I try to make my entire teachers and students a community and service to each other, and care for our own grade 4 and everybody else, so we can expand into the outside world. That is how I look at it, Shubayan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. What we have done very quickly is we have kind of climbed the Maslow's triangle in terms of giving. We started with material giving, not being enough. Then we started talking about intangibles, like giving your service, giving your time. And ma'am, I think broadly, if I have to talk about what you are talking about giving, is perhaps mutual respect, right? So it's actually a wonderful climb that we have achieved. Kalpana ma'am, if we may bring you in at this stage. Kalpana ma'am incidentally also holds an MSW degree. So she's literally the trained professional in the field that you're talking about. Ma'am, you're on mute. Ma'am, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself, please.
Thank you for giving me this platform, Notebook, and meeting such wonderful people and listening to them. I'm myself feeling enlightened. And I'm so much in agreement with what Malini said and Bharat said and Mr. Bhattacharya and Madam Mona. Actually, community service is nothing. It's just reaching out to people. And it starts very much from the family where the child is born. There's a climate there. And if we can create that climate, where there is a person who's working for us, little words like thank you, welcome, all those mannerisms, right from there, if we start talking to children in those words, and that is the attitude we show, they imbibe that, and they just don't imbibe for ourselves, they imbibe for the society, and that goes out. So it's just growing up from the family, then slowly entering to the school, the world become bigger for them. And there in school, again, what Mona ma'am said, that just a pencil, if a child doesn't have, if the 5 hands extended, you've done the job, So that's an atmosphere. And as far as values are concerned, we cannot teach values. We can only demonstrate, and values can be only imbibed, right? As far as community, now, of course, these are growing up, these are sensitizing children to various kind of situations. When we come to a larger world where there is a distinct difference of have and have-nots, that's a reality. It's a harsh reality. It's important that the privileged ones must know that there's something which is like this exists. Therefore, it is important because there are upmarket schools where, all kind of children with all kind of riches comes, they have no idea. They have servants, they can behave in any way, they know how to get away with things. But then it is very important that they expose. Later in life, they will, but how would we prepare them? That there's something like that. Later in life, they do not get the shock that, oh, that also happens. It's important that we expose, and not that there's something like that exists, but as Bharat said very rightly, that we are not giving anything. We are receivers. They do a lot of things for us. In return, if we give. So there's slight bit of, it's just a glass half empty or half full. That's the difference. So that needs to be given, exposed to these kids. And since I was the director in Salam Balak, which works for street children late in 90s, I had a wonderful experience because when we were running the center, a lot of schools came as partners. There were intervention programs. You won't believe, I would go by stories rather than saying what we want to do and there were young children of 13 years old. And you can't imagine, they were young physically, but mentally they had seen everything, which an adult probably may not have seen. He had gone to a prostitute, that boy was into drugs, he had gone and washed dishes in dhabas, he was beaten up badly for taking shelter on railway platform by Delhi police. So much was there. They were physically probably not grown, but mentally they had seen adult life. Talking to them, working with them was completely a different world for me. I learned a lot. And since then, I have realized that you learn so much from them. from anybody. You are always a learner. So similarly, I mean, exposing them to community services is exposing them to a better world, to a greater world where there is scope of reaching out and also receiving. So as Malini said, that we need to walk together. It's nobody's. I'm just holding hands because I also need support. Recently, in our school during pandemic, now this is something called when you reach out to people in normal circumstances, you build up a relationship, you build up a bond. So there's a trust, but that community trusts you. Now suddenly there's a lull. So between trust and hope, they've been hoping. There's a mistrust. So what is more important now? Probably there were somewhere people had digital platforms. Mostly in India, knowing the internet penetration, weak internet penetration, we know that we won't be able to reach. Just calling a child calling to another child, and just saying that, how are you doing? And I'm doing fine. And I've painted this. And what have you done? The little conversation itself is a community service. You know. Similarly, just writing letters. We had forgotten. We've been only mailing. So our children are writing to each other, writing to schools we have adopted, just sending some books to them through the community workers. It's that, just reaching out. It's nothing much. It's just understanding, just talking, especially investing yourself. I think if you have taught our children this, we have won half of the battle. And of course, then when it comes to community programs, we adults need to plan, children need to just follow. And let me tell you, community services, service mindedness can't be forced on children. It has to come within. It has to be by choice, by interest. And that we adults need to create a climate to create those interests and choices, right? And also give complete freedom to children, what they want to do. Listen to them. What is their plan of action? And also give support, because children may not have those things. They may have just idea how to implement. Probably they need some kind of support. So as an adults, we need to give those kind of supports. According to me, it's just living a positive life. It's nothing much. It's nothing a great thing we are doing. We are just helping ourselves out somewhere. That's what I think in nutshell.
Wonderful thoughts, ma'am. Thank you so much. Mona Lisa, ma'am, I'll come back to you on a point that you had mentioned just a little while earlier, saying that there's only so much that you can do with parents. But then, as you said, the critical triangle has the teacher-parent interaction as a critical side, if I may call it that. Ma'am, as you said, charity begins at home, and if I have to take it very literally, if it begins with the family, in this space of community work, do you also involve the parents? Do you, in your activities that you are talking about, if you could list out some of them, and are the families, are the parents involved?
Yes. So basically, during this lockdown, all right, what happened is now, like I just said, one more point, to reach out to parents during the pandemic was very difficult. So what we did is we developed a program which is Drishti. Drishti is a program where we adopted a school just next to our school, because admin was coming to school regularly, on and off, whereas students and teachers and parents were at home. So what we did is because they cannot have access to online learning with the internet and everything, so we tried to have a podcast for them. So we had recorded lessons. So in this, we reached out to some of the students who had the time, and because I'm from Assam and our school is in Assam, so in the local language, we had some parents who recorded for us. Some parents who were good in math, they did some math lessons recording, and we send it to us in admin, and that school is right next to our school. So our staff members went and met the principal of that school, and we disseminated all the learning and all the podcast, and we shared everything with the students. So we covered an entire quarter, whatever they wanted us to cover through podcast. We did that. So that went off very well. This was because everybody has MP3, audio to listen to. So that was the best that we could do around that time, because children could not come or parents could not go. But since we were able to, a few of us, so that was one activity which we did with the parents. And secondly is, again, around December, we have a Girl Up Club in our school. So this time, Girl Up, we had Santa, girl Santa. Okay, so we started school just at the moment we were thinking of really having the offline classes, but in between, before that, since Christmas was coming, so we wanted to spread end of the year 2020 and begin 21 with a more positive note, in a more with some joy and hope. So we called a few students with the Girl Up team, the club members, and the president and the secretary, all the members were girls. So we had Santa, Lady Santa, Girl Santa, along with her a group of girls, all dressed with a bag of chocolates, and in each chocolate we had pasted positive notes like spreading Christmas cheer, let's hope for a good future, be positive, and various kinds of notes. So they went to the fire brigade, then they went to the police stations, they went to the post office, and they sang all the Christmas carols and they spread it around. Then they went to the traffic police people who were, in their duty. So they gave to say, thank you for being there and thank you for us. This, not only the girls did it, we involved the parents of junior wing, which is from lower KG to class 2. So since this we could do for the girls, a reach out program as a physically they could go, but the little ones could not go. So they made cards, and along with their parents, whenever they went out, it was ensured that they stopped by with the traffic police or the people at the special services and gave them cards to say thank you for whatever you're doing and hope you have a great year ahead. So this is one of the activities which I think involved parents, because unless parents realize and reach out and exemplify, it's difficult for children to do the same. So this is one of the activities.
Wonderful, ma'am. Parents setting some examples there. Malini ma'am, if I may come to you with the same question, you have a very peculiar situation. I'm sure the parents of a large part of your student body are already steeped in the service to the nation, right? So service is something that is perhaps ingrained into every child that you admit. Ma'am, how do you see the parents entering the field of community service as far as your school is concerned?
Subhaya, you'd appreciate that the culture of service is embedded in the family. Not just service. We are going 2 steps further. The culture of sacrifice, the highest form of service is already embedded there, and you'd be proud to know that some of my children, and especially the Major Santosh Babu, who lost his life recently last year, his child was with me in the 4th standard, and the kind of bravado that the child put up, when the news of her father passed away was, I want to join the Indian Army too. So that kind of resilience that we build in the children, knowing that their parents are in imminent danger every day. The parent you see in the morning may not come back to you in the evening, so that is the kind of levels of uncertainty that these children live in. So parents as a culture, so at home, there is no need to talk about give something of yourself, because the entire family has sacrificed their whole lives in the service of the country. So what could be bigger than that? But when we involve the children in community service in school, we try and create a society which is inclusive in nature. You know that the Indian Army is a very insulated and isolated, it's always isolated physically also. And the cantonments are areas which are debarred from the general public. So the children tend to meet more of their kind, and they rarely meet people who are different. So therefore, it takes a lot of initiative of the school to help the children reach out, move in civilian atmospheres, to understand how the civil world works, because they move from cantonment to cantonment, areas, insulated areas to insulated areas, unless they go on a holiday or they go back to their villages and so on and so forth. So parental involvement there is, parents step in to accompany the children in all these initiatives that we have. Here I must tell you that the army, in its part of the community service, to ensure that the children relate to children of other parts of the country, we have a big initiative in the Kashmir Valley, where the Indian Army conducts something called the Sadbhavna, you know. So Sadbhavna exchange, where young children of 12 to 18 who are studying in school, who've never seen life beyond the Kashmir Valley, who've never seen anything beyond what the indoctrination happens on stone pelting. Their whole life is, hovers around that, saying how India is terrible and how there's a lot of negativity that kind of gets instilled in them. So the army, because of its own initiative, understanding that these children need to be talked about, brought to the mainstream, and they need to understand communities beyond the community of hate that, exists in and around them. Every year, in fact, twice a year, a large group of school-going children of the Kashmir Valley are brought to the army public schools, in engagement. So they do a little Bharat Darshan, where all 137 schools are there. So they are taken to different schools just to make them feel that they are such an integral part of this vibrant country, where there are people from, Bengal to Tamil Nadu to Maharashtra, all living together. And Kashmir is just a part of that entire fabric, and how the country is welcoming, and what they are missing out by staying in that little small part of the country, thinking that is their world. And they here, all the parents of our school children volunteer to take these children around. So an entire bus is organized and they're taken around, and our children have crisscrosses in the sense that they do a little community service together. They go and visit places together. There are football games. So this is a service to an entire state, to understand, make the children of that state understand what is it that the country offers to them. So that's a big movement that we have. And of course, NCC in our schools is a huge dimension, which many civil schools may not have access to. So NCC component reaches out across the city, whether it is Save Water campaign, or don't let's Swachh Bharat campaign, Save the Monument campaign. So the visibility of these children doing service, interacting with the community, offering their service, physical service. One is being there and holding the poster. The other is actually getting down, getting their hands dirty, like Mr. Philip said, rolling up their sleeves and getting on to work and getting the task done. So these are live examples of how children can be a part of a larger community, give to make a change, and give to create an impact in the neighborhood community. So there are onseers who would see these kids in uniform, NCC uniform, talking to them, telling them how it's important. And we have large campaigns where, we as an army school, we have a policy of not collecting funds from anybody, because that's a policy. So there are lots of schools which go in for crowdfunding for this movement, that movement, and all that. In our kind of schools, it is physical service, being there, giving time, giving our expertise, and putting in the effort, the physical effort of getting things to move. So that is the difference between what many other schools do and what we can do, because that culture is steeped in the school itself. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much. Kalpana, ma'am, if I may come to you, a bit of a different take on the same question. You've worked with the two extremes of students or children, if I may say, of the socioeconomic spectrum, right? You've worked with perhaps the least benefited at the Salam Balak Trust, and you've seen perhaps the most entitled ones at some of the elite schools where you've taught. Now, do parents also have different expectations when they're sending their students to or their children to very elite schools, and therefore they would say, no, don't send them for community service. We need them to turn out to be doctors and engineers.
I would come to that. Yes, I was thinking about it when Bennett was telling about his experience of Doon School. When in Kerala, when the tsunami had hit in 2004, I think, the boys from Vellum Boys decided to go to Kerala for a month camp and decided to give their services. And then we started getting calls from the parents that how can you do that? Are they safe? And there's so much of worry factor. And we had to tell them that that's okay. We are making all kinds of arrangements. So that will always happen because their parents, whether they are from whatever strata of economic strata, parents will feel, But then it was initially this happened, but then with the will of the children, and they were so motivated to go, things went pretty well, and they stayed there for a month, came back very safe, and came back with a lot of sense of purpose, like they achievement, that they did something, they themselves got felt that they did something very satisfying. So that happens, but it's up to you as an organizer, as a school management, how you convince people and how much trust they have on you. So initially, here and there, that happens. But I would tell you what has happened recently. We have a school which is mixed bag, where there are ICE officers, kids coming, where there's an auto rickshaw driver's child is also coming. So again, it's a very mixed kind of a group we have. Children coming from all kind of backgrounds. So when in a class, RTE child, probably one or two children are there, and they were unable to join. And there was a discussion in WhatsApp group. Each class has a WhatsApp group that so-and-so is not coming. The teacher would say, why you're not coming? And the parents will like, I'm sorry, I cannot, I've got hardly any internet. I cannot, he's a mason's son or something. And the parent would write very frankly that it's very difficult to put the video on, and believe me, the parent body decided, okay, this month I'm going to recharge his phone, and I'm going to recharge. That's how, as community, when it comes to they came together, the results were just wonderful. The school just did not. We did not have to do anything. They took the responsibility of sponsoring this child with a very 200 rupees recharge or 250. A child could easily attend the classes. So I'm saying that is the power of coming together. Similarly, we have a certain, I am associated with very renowned school of Dehradun. It's a girls' boarding school. I'm not going to take the name. But these people they take children from John Martin. That's a school run by Doon School alumni. Now, they're very young, vibrant children, and if they pass the entrance, they're taken into the school. Now, during pandemic, they were distributed tabs to gadgets so that knowing that there's such a background they come from, but there was no internet facility. So now, what happened? The school arranged a van, and parents took the responsibility of escorting. One parent took 1 day. It went on rota. They came to school, the parents pitched in, and the children were in school. They did their online schooling. And once the teachers started, things became a little better. Teachers started coming, and they started having even physical support from teachers. This is what I'm saying, that it depends on circumstances. And even the person who you think will be least of importance becomes such an important person that it helps you to drive the force and get you what you want. In community, it's nobody. Who am I? I'm no one. It's everybody. If there is willingness, if there are right kind of climate, if things, good intent, and that's communicated in the right manner, things happen.
Wonderful, ma'am. If there are teachers of economics in the audience, please note that this is a perfect example to quote for your game theory class. Uh, my last question to all of you, addressing the elephant in the room, the pandemic. Now, one of the things about community service, and as a student, this was very exciting to me to do community service, because going out of school, doing stuff with all my friends together, and rolling up our sleeves and getting ourselves really dirty. We enjoyed that. Today, when a part of your service is staying away, is social distancing, is isolation, do you think the shape and form of community service will change? Is, like ma'am said, the recharge of somebody else's internet connectivity going to be the new face of community service? Kalpana ma'am, I'll start with you on this one.
I don't think, I always believe in intent. I always believe in commitment. I believe in determination. If that is there in people, things happen. Form may change. Like I was reading a news which was so inspiring to me. There's a village in district Dagjar of Haryana. Now there's this gentleman who runs a school there called Sita Narayan Sharma. All right. Now, he was very scared after so many months of lockdown, and he thought that e-learning is a faded dream for these rural children. So he tried talking to them, and he realized that people are unable to connect. There's hardly internet. Virtual teaching and learning is not happening. What this guy did? He took a bullet card, put a loudspeaker there, and called his teachers one by one in a slot. He called them, he parked that car in a feasible place, suitable place, where the resident could come closer, but in a proper distance. The student came and his classes went on. So, I mean, what a creativity. What a jugaad. I was taken aback. I said, so that tells me that when there's a will, when people want to do something, it happens. You don't require digital. You don't require anything. You just require that will to do, and that happens. What more would I say?
Thank you, ma'am. Malini ma'am, if I may come to you next. Same question. Do you think the shape and form of community service will change?
A shape or form of community service that you're talking about right now, we are still delving on the very basic haves and have-nots and how people are giving. But today, with so much of loneliness and people being, stuck in places of work, which are, maybe a one-bedroom apartment and so on and so forth, community service today should also include reaching out to people for their social and emotional, well-being. So that part of community service, which was never looked at earlier as a need to reach out to people, would now really take focus, because yes, this economic difference would always be there. The society would be stratified the way it is, and it will continue to be for many, many years. But within that strata, if we find that there is help that's needed, even if from the best of schools, when you have children saying, I need somebody to reach out to, I'm feeling lonely, I'm feeling purposeless, I have nothing important to do, I don't think my life means anything to me. So today, the reaching out happens to be that the requirement is there too. So I think the various shades of community service, to bring the community together, to make every person have a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, would be the larger take of community now. So this is just another aspect of it. While we used to go out to reach out and all of that, today, if you have one person talking to four others and just chit-chatting to find out how they are, I think that itself is another way of reaching out. So I'm sure in the years to come, we would spot community service changing in its shape and form. And I think it's a very pertinent question that you asked. But today, when we talk about, emotional well-being, this is a big call to which I think all the schools are reaching out, saying if we find kids who are doing well for themselves in the EQ quotient, I think we are now creating a huge network of children who are going to be reaching out to their peers in buddy system to tell them that it's okay if they're not feeling okay. And this is the time that we need to be together and uh, get a sense of purpose in their lives. So I think that has been a major change, maker in the way we reach out. And of course, the physical worry of can we go to the places where we did to offer what we did? Yes, there would be concerns. The fear of the pandemic is not going to go off in a rush because there are going to be, afterthoughts. There are going to be constraints. Parents are still hesitant to send the children to school. So, with so much happening and a second wave seeming to take its peak, so while we would love it to be normal and everything back to where it was, but it doesn't seem to be for quite some time. So I think the reaching out and all of that, which we need to restrict ourselves to, I think there's going to be a lot that's going to happen online. There is a lot that is going to be happening as wired transfer, though I say resources should not be collected and given. But I think these are changed ways of the pandemic. So I think we should be open to it. And adaptability is the answer to everything. And today, it is not about starting something new as knee jerk reactions, but to sustain and to continue with what we were doing, the help that we were offering, whether it was for special children or for the underprivileged or for, community at large, the elderly. Everything that we were doing needs to continue, but in a different form, maybe virtually, because there are huge lot of Zoom meetings being organized for the old age homes where there's entertainment being offered by the children for the elderly there. So waves have changed. The time spent, the quality time of not traveling physically, but being there, for everyone is has changed. So I think these are the new ways. I'm sure by the time you call us the next time for another conversation on outreach, we would have already devised some fantastic new ways of reaching out to people. Yes. So these are some of the initial thoughts, and I'm sure as we work our way through, schools would find new ways of reaching out. Yeah. Thank you.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you so much. Mona, ma'am, if I may come to you next.
Yes.
How do you see this space evolving? Has your school already started opening up? Are your students back in
Yes,
school?
yes, we are actually the Northeast. I don't know, perhaps Jorhat is just a bit lucky. Uh, we are open. We are having full school from classes 1 to 10, 11, 12. Yeah. So basically, the question which you put up, and Malini ma'am and Kalpana ma'am has said it very beautifully. For me, again, I go back to what I said. Community service again will have different forms. For me, it is reaching out. Obviously, reaching out in different forms. The pandemic has, I look at it very positively. Of course, pandemic has been a globally, very, very disastrous, very horrific year. But there's a good side to everything. It has just made the world very small. Okay. So for us to reach out to people, we found different ways to reach out to people, whether it is through wires, whether it is through a network, or some creative thoughts. People have done it. We've also done it with podcast and things like that. So whether pandemic or no pandemic, I don't think so schools will roll back to any kind of not doing any community service. Yes, the forms are going to be different, the methods are going to be different, and it is only physical distancing that we are talking about. It's not social distancing. It's actually socially we are always very close. All right. I don't believe in the term when you say social distancing. It's just physically perhaps we are we need to be a little away from each other. Secondly, keeping all the protocols in place. Again, community is not at large, right? We can do little things. Whether the pandemic fear is totally over or not, we hope to be back into a real, a world which we were in before. And pandemics have struck before as well. So the world has not stopped and community service has not stopped. Okay. So it was not going to stop even now. But things will be different. And community is, like I said, a home is a community, a school is a community. So a home at large has a community because people are coming, working together and reaching out and going out. So what can parents and children do at home? And what can schools do for the society through the students and parents to reach out? So that itself is like an entire gamut of change. And whether pandemic or no pandemic, it's here to stay. And it's a mindset, like Kalpana said, it's a mindset that I also feel. It is community service all the time. We are a community which we have to think and walk together with people. That's all. Thank you so much, Subhaya.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Clearly, this is a conversation that I don't want to end. We could have so much more of this, and I'm quite aware we have just scratched the surface, especially with a community of educators here who are undertaking community service every day that you walk into work. Well, Achin, I think you had a fantastic discussion. You will have quite a bit to thank for. So I will leave the stage to you. Once again, thanks everybody for being here. Achin, over to you.
Really great discussion we had. I think some very wonderful points came up and very seamless discussion. Bharat sir, thank you as always for giving us a great start. Whenever we discuss about community service in schools, definitely, I think no discussion can be complete without the mention of Doon School and the wonderful work that DOSCOs have done. Undoubtedly, it's an exemplary example for everyone. Malini ma'am, thank you so much, ma'am, for being with us here today, for your time. Some great points you made, starting from culture, of course. I think we all agree on that. Yeah, it's completely true that religious institutions have always played a key role, and be it any religion, in terms of community service, looking for the needy, undoubtedly. And yes, I completely agree with you that, in today's time, again, because of pandemic, I think reaching out to people for their social and emotional well-being, the point that you made, I think is really important, very, very important, very contemporary in today's time. People suffering from loneliness, stuck up in small workplaces, as you mentioned, reaching out to them and ensuring that their social and emotional needs are taken care of, which I believe is equally important, if not more, as important as other basic needs, undoubtedly. So thank you, ma'am. Mona Lisa, ma'am, again, some very good points you made. I think especially the way you started off, that wonderful example that stays with us, that one student asking for a pencil and 5 hands up to help, that really captures the spirit, the essence of building a community. So I think, and also I really like the way you gave example with regard to how you reached out to your neighboring school and helped them and work together. That of course is the spirit. Again, reaching out, I think very true that the essence will never change. Essence of community service will never change. But yes, reaching out in different forms in today's time. We all agree that yes, this pandemic, in spite of the fact that we all agree that this has probably been the worst humanitarian crisis, ever. Even if you look at the number of casualties, mind-boggling. Across the world, people suffering. No respite, more than a year now. And as some of our panelists also mentioned, that looking at a second wave and other things, undoubtedly. But yes, in spite of that, the fact that this has made the world a smaller place with people reaching out to each other, families spending more time together, and we all realizing that how little we actually need, because all of us in our lifestyles, many things that we're used to, be it weekend mall visits, be it shopping, be it restaurant sitting out, we all realize that actually, how little we really need. So I think this has been an eye-opener also. It's like holding the mirror in front of all of us, undoubtedly. Kalpana ma'am, again, thank you. Some very good points you made, which I guess really stays with us. The fact that when you discuss about community, it's about everyone, and willingness and intent. These two words that you mentioned, I completely agree with you. And yes, we firmly believe that values cannot be taught; they can only be demonstrated. So I think some great examples you came up with, be it example of parents' concern and the importance of trust on the part of educators to take everyone on board, or be it the example of parents volunteering, whether for a recharge or volunteering for online classes, reaching out. I think this is the spirit, especially when times are tough. These are testing times when we actually see how strong our social fabric is, when everyone really comes forward and lends a helping hand. So I think on that positive note, we really had a great discussion. I also thank members of our esteemed audience for being with us here today. And I really thank you for taking us from strength to strength. We look forward to your support in the days to come. Thank you. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you, Arjun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.